you so much for being here today and for being patient because I'm running a little bit late because of some Wi-Fi issues. So today we are going to be celebrating with our continuation of our Patriotic Week. And so happy Canada Day. Yay. Today we are going to be making our version of the world out of paper mache. So without further ado, let's get started. So for this activity, you're going to need a measuring cup for some water, a spoon to stir your items, two bowls, a balloon, whatever paint that you want to paint your globe with. I'm going to be doing blue for the oceans and green for the land. You can also make a flag out of your paper mache. You could do just one country. You could do the state that you live in. You can do whatever you want with your globe that we're going to be making. I also have glue and then I have a paintbrush. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to blow up our balloon. So we're first going to open up our balloons. When you're blowing up a balloon, sometimes it's easier to kind of stretch it a little bit to make it easier to blow up. So we're going to blow up our balloon. Maybe. I'm going to be making a small globe today, so I'm only going to make it probably a quarter of what the balloon actually could be made. So I'm then going to tie it. If you need a parent to help you with this step, that is perfectly fine. I'm going to set this off to the side because we're not ready for that just yet. Next, I'm going to start tearing up the newspaper strip because this newspaper is what we're going to be using to cover up our balloon with the paper mache. So you could do this one of two ways. You could just rip the newspaper. You could cut the newspaper if you want them to be cleaner lines. It's really whatever you want. So I'm just simply tearing the newspaper. You want them to kind of be thin strips. So this might be easier with a pair of scissors. Paper mache is really cool because you can paper mache practically anything. This was one of my favorite activities to do growing up with my grandma. My grandma and I love to do paper mache. We ended up together making a teddy bear, a flamingo, and I really enjoyed being able to do this with my grandma. So I'm just gonna keep tearing off pieces of newspaper. We're gonna go through a lot of pieces of paper because with paper mache you want to do quite a few layers. For today's activity, we're not going to be doing multiple layers. We're just going to do one thick layer because we are wanting to make it dry pretty quickly. I also forgot to mention that with me, I also have a blow dryer. This is completely optional. If you want to take more time on your paper mache globe, what you can do is you can do a few layers tonight, and then you can let it dry overnight and then do another layer tomorrow. But for today, I'm going to be using a blow dryer so I can speed up the process quite a bit. So again, if you're just joining, we are just tearing apart the newspaper because we're going to be going in strips. And we're going to be going around the balloon that we blew up earlier. So there's no right or wrong way to be doing this. And I just started out with one piece of newspaper, but I can almost guarantee that we're probably going to have to rip up some more. So the next thing that we are going to do is we are going to start combining the different ingredients. So we have start putting the water into. So for the water, we're going to put 2 cups in the bowl. And if you can tell when you're using a measuring cup, you go up to the line that says 2 cups, or this one says ounces if you know the ounces that you need to be using. So I like to set it down on the counter. I like to make sure it's on the line, and then I dump it in. So there's 2 different ways that you can make paper mache. You can make it with glue, or you can make it with flour. I am going to do a little combination of both. Totally optional how you want to do this, but I'm going to grab another measuring cup, and I'm going to take some flour and I'm going to mix that, and then I'm going to add some glue to it to give it some more of a sticky consistency. So here I have my flour. I have my measuring cup. I'm just going to start dumping this in. If you have a different container for your flour, this might be easier just to scoop out. But for me, this is just how we're going to do it today. When you're measuring flour or other dry ingredients, so this is a dry ingredient, you want to get enough in your measuring cup, and then you want to grab normally a knife or a fork or something with a smooth edge, and you take your utensil or whatever you're using and you kind of scrape the top so it's even, so you know that for sure you're getting the exact amount. So I'm just going to scrape, and just like that, it's clean on the top. You can't see any other flour. Flour can be messy. I just got a little bit over my counter, but that's okay. We're going to clean up afterwards. So I have a cup of flour I'm going to put in right now into the water. So I just dumped it in there. I will show you guys what I'm doing. So here it is in my sink. You can see kind of the flour that I kind of got everywhere. So here I'm just going to keep mixing up. It's kind of clumpy, which that's to be expected because flour and water just kind of does that when you're using it. But if you are not doing this version of making a paper mache, if you're doing the glue version, what you would do is you would take a few cups of water and you would boil the water so it's nice and hot, and then you put a cup of glue in there. But just to make more of our time spent on actually doing the paper mache, I'm just going to do this version of it. So as you can see, there are some clumps still in there, which is to be expected, but I'm going to add some glue to it to give a little bit of consistency so it's not as runny. Paper mache naturally is just going to be kind of runny because the process. So I'm just going to add some glue in there. Just going to kind of eyeball it. I'm just going to add some in there. But the whole idea of paper mache is we're going to dump the newspaper in the paper mache, completely cover it, and we're going to then put it on our balloon. And when it hardens, then we're going to be able to pop the balloon, which is really fun. It's pretty cool to think that you can have a balloon, put some paper on it with some special material, which is this paper mache, and then you have your own new sphere, which I think is cool. So we're going to take our balloon, and I advise kind of doing this in an area that you don't mind getting messy. I'm going to set down a piece of newspaper in front of me just to make sure that I am kind of being aware of my area. I'm going to clean up a little bit afterwards. So this part is where things can get to be a little messy. I am going to put my hair up just to make sure that my long hair just doesn't get in it. Again, after this, we'll wash our hands. Everything's washable, so if your hands get a little sticky, that's okay. You can go wash your hands or you can wash them after. So here I'm going to be taking my first piece of newspaper and I'm going to dip it completely into the mixture. So to show you what I'm doing. So if you can see my bowl right there, I'm putting my piece of paper in the mixture, just tap, 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 flipping it over, covering that side. And then if you put your pointer finger and your middle finger together and you kind of just rub it down like that, you get the extra fluid off of the newspaper, which is good because we don't want our balloon to be too lumpy or anything. Oh, my balloon runs away from me. So I got my balloon again, and I'm just gonna start covering the balloon. Anyway, it really doesn't matter because we're gonna be painting over it. So I'm just gonna keep taking my balloon, taking my pieces of newspaper, and I'm just gonna keep dumping them in the mixture. Since I am using one hand, I'm actually wiping off the excess paper mache with on the side of the bowl. I'm gonna show you, but my hand is getting a little dirty. That's okay, because what we're gonna do, we're gonna wash our hands. So I'm literally just moving them, and you can kind of see that it's dripping off a little bit. That's okay because that might help get another piece of paper stick on it. So this process can be long depending on how much paper mache you have on it. So just keep that in mind. Even though we're going to be using a blow dryer, that still might not get it dry enough where we can paint it, but that is okay. We are all flexible and we can learn to do things not as they're planned because sometimes that's what happens in life. So again, I'm just wiping off the excess off of my balloon. And yeah, so we're just paper macheing. This was a super easy mixture to make. You can actually buy paper mache in a bottle. That's what I used to do with my grandma. We didn't make it like this because we were making really big paper mache items. If you guys are just now logging on, I was saying that this was one of my favorite things I used to do with my grandma growing up when I was about 9 or 10 because we would paper mache, but I made a teddy bear, I made a flamingo, but the flamingo was life size. So we went through a lot of paper mache materials, which just made it easier for us to just buy a jug of the already made materials that we made. So I'm just gonna keep adding more. I think that this is wet enough that I'm just gonna start adding more to it. Because if you think about it, if we're gonna pop this balloon once it's dry, we gotta make sure that there's enough toilet paper. Or newspaper, not toilet paper, that's silly. So also another way to do this once you start getting pieces on there, to see I'm just putting the piece of newspaper over top of the already soggy newspaper on there. I'm just tapping it. But you can also take your fingers and you can dip it in the paper mache and you can kind of just wipe it or tap it and just put it over the newspaper you just put. So this is definitely a project you have to take a little bit more time on because depending on how big your balloon is, I'm so excited to see how everyone else's turns out. Depending on how big your balloon is, it's going to take either more newspaper or less newspaper. But mine, I'd say mine's probably like medium size. And also, since we're making a globe, there's a lot of different things that you can do to make yours different. You could make yours just a single color, and you could write or draw wherever you live, what country you live in. I live in the USA, so I could possibly just put the United States on, or there's some really cool countries and continents that I would love to visit someday. I might draw or paint one of those on here as a sort of inspiration of someday I could go visit there. For instance, I really want to go to Greece, so maybe I could draw Greece on here. I'd love to backpack Europe. I think that would be so fun, so I could do that. But another idea is if you know the your state color, your continent's color, your country's color, you could also do the flags. You could do a flower. There's a lot of different options you could do with this, and I'm really excited to see where you guys take this activity. I'm already running kind of low on newspaper, so if that is your guys' case too, that's to be expected. It's easier to have to rip apart a new piece of newspaper than have to throw away all these little pieces of paper. But so this is kind of my progress so far. I still have a little bit more to go, and like I said, I'm gonna probably go back and put some more on there just to make it a little thicker. Oh, that was a pretty cool piece. And that's the cool thing about paper mache when you're ripping the newspapers. You do them in strips and you can cut them and you can make them perfect and straight. Or you can do what I did and you can just rip them apart whatever way. And I think that kind of gives it a cool, unique dimension or just a cool way of looking. So I'm just going to keep pressing it down and making sure that it's all sticking. And I'm going to add another piece of paper here. That's a pretty wet area. Oh yeah, you can see it just stuck down without me using any of the paper mache stuff. So again, I'm just going to press it down right here. I have another piece of paper, right here. Another option of what you could do with this is, as you can tell, it's a newspaper, so there's different words all over it. I think it'd be pretty cool if you could find a few words you like, highlight them, just leave it blank, and just look at the different words that showed up. Like let me see if there's any. Well, there's a few towns around me that have popped up on here that I think is pretty cool that I could highlight and I could kind of bring more attention to. This is also an activity that you could do inside, you could do outside, depending on where you are working, because of course you're going to need to clean up, and if you're outside, you want easy access to a hose or other water source to kind of rinse off the area, and you need to make sure your parents say it's okay. And then inside too, I'm doing this all over my sink, so that's really helping with the extra dripping of the paper mache. But you could also just have a piece of newspaper underneath you as well. I only have a few more pieces to actually cover up the balloon, but then I'm going to rip some more newspaper apart and stick those on there. So I'm just going to put this piece of paper on there. It's all still pretty wet. I have my last piece of newspaper here. I'm going to actually try to rip it in half. So I have my newspaper, paper mache, patting it all down. All right. I'm going to dip my fingers in the paper mache and wet this down a little bit more because it's not sticking like I wanted to. So now I'm going to place my ball on the newspaper in front of my computer that you can't see. I am going to grab another piece of newspaper right here. And I'm just going to start ripping it apart. The good thing about this right now is Yeah, my hands are still wet, but that's okay because I'm just going to put my hand back in paper mache again. So instead of just ripping them off and putting them to the side, I'm just going to automatically put them on my globe. I'm just going to take off little pieces, and I'm just going to stick them like this for right now, just where I'm thinking I want them to go. And then I'm going to grab some of the paper mache with my fingers and kind of just put them on. So this is a very detailed and kind of time consuming, depending on how much time you want to spend on an activity. But I think that's what makes it so cool, is because it's not something you just did in 5 minutes. It's something you took some time on. So I'm going to keep ripping pieces of paper as I talk. I'm going to dip them in my paper mache solution. And it's pretty soggy right now. I'm going to put a few more strips on. I'm going to wash my hands, and then I'm going to try to blow dry it. But with paper mache, you may be able to tell it's kind of lifted right here. And so of course, this isn't going to be a perfect circle, and that's perfectly fine. That's what also makes it really cool and makes everyone's different. But I have a few more pieces of newspaper I'm going to try to put on here before I blow dry it. And like I said, yours might not get dry enough with the blow dryer, and that is okay. You can save this video for later, and you can continue on with the process when it is dry. Mine might not even become dry enough with the blow dryer, and that's okay because you don't have to make the end result like mine was. So I'm just going to call that good for right now. I'm going to wash my hands. First, move my newspaper to the side. I'm going to wash my hands really quick so my blow dryer doesn't get super sticky. Grabbing some paper towels to dry it off. Make sure it's really dry when I plug this blow dryer in. And then when I blow dry this, I'm going to try to hold my globe by the knot of the balloon. But if I feel like it's not strong enough to hold from there, then I'm going to hold it from a wet area. But it's important that if you have a wet hand when you're blow drying, that you don't use that hand to touch the blow dryer because it's unsafe. We want to make sure that we're staying safe. And I highly recommend a parent helping you with this step or supervising. So I'm just going to take the knot of the globe. I apologize, it's going to get loud, but I'm going to see if I can do this and see if I can harden it. So I'm going to pause for a second. So if you saw what my globe was doing at the very beginning, I had my blow dryer on high. So there's some pieces like this one where I need to go back and I need to add some paper mache to it. So I'm going to take my left hand, because I'm right-handed. I'm going to dip my finger in the solution, and I'm just going to gently put that on and make sure it's sticking down. So now I'm just gonna grab it with that finger so I know not to use the blow dryer with my wet finger. I'm gonna turn it back on low. High looks to be a little too much. I also have my blow dryer set on hot. If your blow dryer doesn't have different settings, that's okay, but I would turn it on low. Another thing to note when you're blow drying your paper mache is I'm not getting the blow dryer so close to the paper because it's going to get too hot. I'm keeping it a safe distance away. So I'm just going to keep going. It's not getting overly dry. It's definitely becoming drier, but not where it would be safe enough to pop the balloon. If I would pop the balloon right now, the balloon would just kind of just fall apart and then my paper mache would fall apart. So I'm going to keep blow drying it and see if maybe it can get a little bit better that I can paint a little bit of it. Okay, it is getting a little bit drier. As you can tell, this spot is a little bit whiter, which means it's drier. This one spot is darker, so that's pretty wet. It might be easiest if you all would just let it dry overnight, but I'm going to walk through what I am going to do with mine once it is dry. So once it's dry, I'm going to be taking my blue washable paint and my green washable paint, and I'm going to be putting them on a paper towel or a paper plate. I'm going to have a paper towel to clean off my brushes, and I'm going to paint the ocean on the majority of my globe, and then I'm going to take the green and I'm just going to make little things of land for the different continents that we have on our globe. But right now my globe is too dry or too wet to do that. So I am going to keep blow drying, and then I'm going to try on a little spot of the globe to see if I can actually paint a little bit of it. dry. That was safe to use. I'm going to unplug my blow dryer, and I'm going to set that off to the side. I'm going to now take my colors. I'm just going to do some blue because it's not completely dry where I want it to be, but I at least want to get a little bit of some ocean on here. I have recently used my paintbrush, so I'm going to fill up a little water cup to soften the bristles of my paintbrush. So I'm just moving it back and forth, softening the bristles. The bristles are those little tiny hairs on your brush that picks up the paint so you can do whatever you want with it. I didn't clean my brush out too well last time, so it's a little stiff. It's a little hard. That's why it's important to clean your brushes after you're done using them. Alright, so now my brush is good to use. I'm going to I'm dabbing it right now on my newspaper to kind of get off some of the wetness. And since I'm not doing my whole entire globe right now, I'm just gonna dab my paint and my paintbrush in there, and I'm gonna start painting on it. So the blue is not as dark as it would be if this is completely dry, but you understand the point. So I'm just gonna keep painting all over it. It's gonna take a few coats probably for you to get color that you might be wanting. So this is my version of the ocean so far. And so I'm going to say that's good for my ocean right this second. I'm going to rinse off my brush over here in this little cup. Get all the blue out because I'm going to use some green to make a little continent, some land. And I'm going to wipe it off right here, get all the wet off. I'm going to take my green paint. And you could look up a map and you could see exactly how the different continents look like. You could just do whatever you want to do. This is really up to you and how you want to decorate your paper mache. I'm just going to take a little bit of the green and I'm just going to do my version of a continent over here. Kind of trying to make Africa, but I am not an artist. But that is okay because this is going to be my special globe. So that's supposed to be my Africa, the green. So then I'm going to take my paintbrush and I'm going to put it in the water again and get some of this off because I'm going to add some blue around it. Wiping off the extra water, getting some blue. And I'm just going to go around my Africa I made so then I can see more what plant or what I made. So that's kind of what I'm working with right here. I'm going to just keep painting blue around because all I really wanted to do was I just wanted to kind of get Africa. But you guys can do whatever you want. I could have made the state that I live in because I'm in the United States of America, so I live in a state. I know that some of our viewers don't live in the United States. They live in Europe, they live in Canada, they could live We live anywhere in the world, so I thought this would be a fun activity for all of us to show a little bit about ourselves. I'm just going to keep painting around. Notice I'm just keeping my finger on the tie of the balloon, which makes it really easy to hold on to, because if you think about what I'm painting right now, it's a circle, it's a sphere. So if I would set it down right now, if I had painted the back would have gotten paint all over everything. So I'm actually just going to let that dry right now. Later on, I hope to add some more to it. And I don't really know what that's going to look like. I might add my name. I might add some flowers. I might add a flag. But for now, this is my final product. This is my globe that I made with Africa on it. I just want to thank you guys so much for being here today, for being so patient, because this activity does take a little bit longer. I am so excited to see what you guys make. Please make sure to like this video and to add pictures of the globes that you guys all made. Thank you so much again, and please check back on for bedtime stories tonight. Have a good evening, guys. Bye.